Captain Elias Rourke had seen many strange things during his years with the United Earth Fleet, but the message waiting for him on his console that morning was easily the strangest. It was written in a dozen alien symbols, all translated neatly by his ship's AI into one simple line. You are invited to the celestial sauna for a diplomatic cultural exchange. Elias blinked twice, wondering if one of his officers was playing a joke. But no one aboard the UEF Horizon was foolish enough to prank their captain, especially not on the day he was supposed to meet the diplomats from the Tri-Species Coalition. The coalition was made up of three powerful civilizations: the tall, noble Vaharans, the crystalline, energy-based Thal, and the multi-limbed HFY traders. Each of them had been at war at some point in the last millennium. Somehow, humans had entered the galactic stage only 30 years earlier and managed to not offend them all. That alone was considered a miracle. Now, apparently, they wanted to meet him. In a sauna. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. A sauna, he muttered. Out of all places. The AI spoke in its polite tone. Captain, the Celestial Sauna is a well-known cultural site in this region. It is considered neutral ground for diplomacy. Still, Elias said, I'd prefer a conference room, with chairs, and water that stays inside a bottle. His first officer, Lieutenant Mara Quinn, stepped into the bridge at that moment and overheard him. Captain, the coalition delegation has arrived, she said, and they are expecting you. Elias sighed. Of course they are. He straightened his uniform, ran a hand across his short dark hair, and reminded himself that humanity needed every good diplomatic moment it could get. If sitting in a sauna with aliens helped strengthen alliances, then he would sit in the hottest, steamiest room in the known galaxy without complaint. Well, maybe with a little complaint. The Celestial Sauna. The Celestial Sauna floated in orbit around a quiet blue star. From outside, it looked like a giant glowing ring, its surface shimmering like it was made of liquid sunlight. The docking tubes attached themselves smoothly to the horizon, creating a sealed walkway. Elias followed a pair of Vaharan attendants as they guided him through the station. The halls were warm, not uncomfortably, but enough that he felt his skin tingling after a few minutes. Glowing panels along the walls showed alien inscriptions. The atmosphere smelled faintly of herbs and metal. It is designed to relax the mind, one of the Vaharans explained in a calm voice. She was a tall, luminous being with pale silver skin and deep blue eyes. Our cultures find great clarity in heat. Elias nodded. Humans use saunas too, usually for relaxation, not diplomacy. The Vaharan gave a small smile. Perhaps humans will find clarity here as well. They reached a large chamber door. A gentle mist drifted from the cracks around it, and Elias could already feel the moisture in the air. Beyond the door, he heard low humming, voices from multiple species blending together. Your delegation awaits, the attendant said. Elias took a steady breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped inside. Inside the steam hall, steam rolled through the air in swirling white clouds. The hall was larger than any human sauna he'd ever seen, almost the size of a small auditorium. Stone benches curved around a central glowing pool. Above, the ceiling shimmered like a sky made of heated crystal. 3 figures sat waiting for him. The Vaharan diplomat, Lady Raella, stood first. Her form was tall and elegant, her silver skin reflecting the warm light like polished metal. Captain Rourke, she greeted warmly. It is an honor. The honor is mine, Elias replied. Next was the Thal envoy. Its body was semi-transparent crystal, glowing softly from within, like a floating shard of light given life. It communicated through harmonic tones that the translator rendered into English. Human captain, it hummed, your presence strengthens the accord. Finally, The HFY ambassador clacked forward on 4 flexible limbs. Its mandibles clicked in what Elias had learned was a friendly greeting. "Human heat endurance is impressive," the HFY said. "We expect you will handle this environment well." Elias tried not to show his doubt. "I'll do my best." They motioned for him to sit. The stone bench was warm, very warm, but not unbearable. Still, within a minute he could feel sweat forming on his forehead. It didn't help that the aliens showed no signs of discomfort. The Vaharans thrived in heat. The Thal didn't sweat at all, and the HFY seemed to radiate satisfaction, like this was their ideal climate. Elias reminded himself that humans were adaptable. If sailors in the old Earth navies could handle weeks at sea in ships with no ventilation, he could handle one diplomatic meeting in a fancy alien spa. Unexpected negotiations. Lady Ryella spoke first, her voice calm despite the rising temperature. "We called this meeting because the Coalition faces a challenge that threatens us all," she said, "and we believe humans can help." Elias leaned forward slightly. "I'm listening." The Thal envoy emitted a low harmonic tone. "A new faction has emerged, the Orathi." "I've heard the name," Elias said. "Aggressive expansionists, heavy militarization." The HFY ambassador clicked its mandibles. "They seek control of this region. Their fleets grow daily. They will target humanity soon." Elias felt a chill run through him despite the heat. "Earth has no intention of provoking anyone, but we won't be pushed around either." "That," Lady Ryella said, "is exactly why we are here." She gestured toward the glowing pool in the center of the hall. "The celestial sauna is not merely relaxation. It is a place where species face truth. Heat strips away pretense. It reveals strength and weakness." Elias raised a brow. "Are you testing me?" "In a way," the Vaharan admitted. "Before we can form a united front against the Orathi, we must understand the human will. Words alone are not enough. We must see how humanity endures pressure." Elias glanced at the swirling steam. "So you're going to make this hotter?" The HFY made a low rumbling sound that translated as laughter. "Not dangerously hot," it said, "but enough to show your resolve." Elias felt his jaw tighten, but he nodded. "Do what you have to do." Lady Ryella gestured, and the temperature began to rise. Slowly at first, then more immediately noticeable. The air thickened. Elias inhaled deeply, feeling the heat sliding into his lungs. Sweat dripped down his neck. His vision shimmered at the edges, but he stayed seated. He reminded himself why he was here. Humanity needed allies. If he failed this simple test, the Coalition might abandon negotiations. The Thal envoy watched him, its inner light pulsing softly. "Your endurance is remarkable," it hummed, "but this is only the beginning." "Great," Elias muttered under his breath. The first sign of trouble. Just as the diplomats prepared to continue the ritual, a low vibration trembled through the floor. Elias thought at first it was part of the ceremony, but the sudden alarm echoing from the hall walls proved otherwise. Lady Ryella stood abruptly. "That signal is not part of the sauna's systems." The Thal envoy flickered, its crystal form shifting color. "An energy fluctuation. Unstable." The HFY scuttled toward the central pool. "Someone is tampering with the regulator stones." Elias pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the dizziness from the heat. "Is this normal? Tell me this is normal." Lady Ryella's eyes darkened. "It is not, and it should be impossible. Only authorized personnel can access the regulator system." Elias stepped forward, his instincts sharpening. "Then someone unauthorized is here." The floor trembled again. The pool's glow shifted from a warm amber to an alarming red. The Thal envoy emitted a sharp tone. "If the regulator destabilizes, the entire sauna will enter thermal overload." Elias didn't know exactly what thermal overload meant in alien engineering terms, but he was pretty sure it wasn't something he wanted to experience. "Is there a way to shut it down?" he asked. Lady Raella pointed to a narrow maintenance doorway on the far side of the hall. "Yes, but it requires manual activation." The HFY looked between the diplomats. "Only a being with high heat tolerance could make it inside. Anyone else would collapse." All eyes turned to Elias. He stared back. "Oh," he said. "Wonderful." A decision made in heat. Elias took another breath, feeling the air burn slightly as it moved through him. He didn't know who sabotaged the sauna or why. He didn't know how dangerous the overload would be. But he did know one thing. If this place exploded, or boiled, or melted, or whatever happened, every diplomat here would die. And humanity would be blamed. Or worse, humanity would lose the only allies who could help them stand against the Orathi. So he stepped forward. "Point me to the controls," he said. "I'll handle it." Lady Raella placed a hand lightly on his shoulder, a gesture of respect. "The path will test you, Captain. Are you certain?" "No," Elias said honestly, "but I'm going anyway." The aliens exchanged looks. Slowly, the HFY nodded. "Human will," it said, "is stronger than we expected." Elias wiped sweat from his brow, straightened his posture, and walked toward the maintenance door as steam rolled around him like a rising storm. This was not how he imagined his day would go, but then again, nothing in space ever went as expected. And humans? Humans adapted. Captain Elias Rourke stood in front of the maintenance door, feeling the heat of the celestial sauna pushing against his skin like a living creature. The floor vibrated again, stronger this time, as if warning him that time was running out. Behind him, the steam-filled hall buzzed with alarmed voices from the Vaharans, Thal, and HFY diplomats. Lady Raella called after him, "Captain, once you enter, the temperature will increase sharply. The maintenance corridor was never designed for organic visitors." Elias wiped sweat from his eyebrows. "Good thing humans are only mostly organic," he joked weakly. The HFY ambassador clacked its mandibles. "You should still be careful. A wrong turn could lead to the thermal vents." "That sounds bad," Elias said. "It is extremely bad," the HFY confirmed. Elias nodded once, took a steady breath, and touched the glowing control panel beside the narrow doorway. The panel scanned him, humming softly. A moment later, the door slid open with a hiss, releasing a wave of blistering heat. Even though he had prepared himself, the intense blast still hit like a wall of fire. His eyes watered instantly, and his skin felt like it was standing too close to a furnace. He swallowed hard. "All right," he muttered. "No pressure. Just walk into an oven for the sake of diplomacy." With that, he stepped inside. The corridor of fire. The maintenance corridor was long, narrow, and glowing with red-orange light. Pipes lined both walls, pulsing with waves of molten energy. The air shimmered so much he could barely see more than a few meters ahead. The smell of hot metal filled his nose. Elias forced himself to move slowly and carefully. The floor panels vibrated under his boots. Sweat streamed down the sides of his face and soaked into his collar. Back in the hall, the diplomats watched his progress through a holographic viewer. Lady Raella's expression was tense. "He is pushing himself beyond human limits," she murmured. But the Thal envoy's voice pulsed through the hall in steady harmonic tones. "Observe. His endurance remains strong. His determination rises with adversity." The HFY clicked softly. Humans are strange creatures. Fragile bodies, but wills made of iron. Elias didn't hear their conversation. He was too busy trying to stay conscious. The heat on his skin felt like burning sand. Every breath was heavy, but he kept moving, repeating a small mantra in his head: left foot, right foot, keep going. He reached a junction where 3 glowing tunnels branched off. The corridor on the left crackled with unstable sparks. The one on the right emitted a deep hum that vibrated his bones. The center tunnel glowed brighter than the rest but looked the most stable. He chose the middle path. Sabotage revealed. As he walked, Elias noticed signs of tampering. Panels had been forced open. Wires lay scattered across the floor. A few pipes were cracked, leaking bursts of superheated vapor. Someone had done this intentionally. He stopped in front of an exposed control node. The display showed chaotic readings. Whoever sabotaged this, he muttered, knew exactly what they were doing. He tapped his wrist communicator. This is Rourke. I'm seeing signs of forced entry. More than one area was damaged. The communicator crackled under the extreme heat, but Lady Ryella's voice still came through. Can you repair it? I can try, he said, but I think this was planned to fail. By whom? The Heshkai asked. Elias shook his head, even though they couldn't see him. I don't know yet. He continued deeper into the corridor, the temperature increasing every few steps. His uniform stuck to his skin, and his lungs burned with each breath, but he refused to stop. Finally, he reached a circular chamber at the end of the tunnel. The room was filled with swirling heat, like the inside of a volcano. At the center stood a large glowing pillar, the primary regulator. The pillar's energy was flickering wildly, sometimes shining bright yellow, sometimes dimming into a worrying red. If it shut down, the thermal pressure from the entire sauna would explode outward. Elias had to stabilize it. Fast, the human touch. He approached the control panel, tapping it lightly. The screen displayed error messages in several alien languages. Okay, he said to himself. Let's see what you're hiding. His fingers moved quickly as he studied the layout. Alien technology was complex, but not impossible. The fleet trained humans to work with hybrid systems. Plus, Elias had repaired enough malfunctioning starship engines to understand unstable energy flows. He found a damaged coolant valve at the base of the pillar. It had been deliberately blocked with a metallic shard. He crouched down and gripped the shard with both hands. It burned his palms even through the protective gloves. His muscles strained as he pulled. The heat tried to force him to retreat, but he gritted his teeth and refused. "Come on!" he growled. With a final jerk, the shard broke free. A blast of steam shot out in a controlled wave, and the pillar's light flickered back toward yellow. He wasn't done yet. The next step was to reset the internal stabilizer. He opened the panel and rewired 3 key circuits. The heat made his vision blur, so he blinked repeatedly to stay focused. Finally, he reached the master override switch. It was sealed inside a transparent casing, and the casing required a biological key. Not alien biology, human biology. Elias stared for a moment, confused. Why would a human-coded lock exist inside a coalition sauna? He raised his communicator. Ryella, the master override is set to human authorization. Why? There was a pause. Then her voice returned, softer. We wanted to test your trust. We believed only a human would be capable of enduring the corridor. The override was designed for you. He took a slow breath. You trusted me that much? We hoped, she answered. He pressed his hand to the casing. The scanner glowed blue, reading his palm print. The casing popped open. He pulled the master switch. The entire chamber shuddered, and the pillar shot up with bright golden light. The sauna was stabilizing. Too late for rest. Elias sagged against the pillar, panting. The heat still baked him, but the imminent explosion was gone. Sweat dripped off his chin like raindrops. Regulator stabilized, he whispered. Back in the hall, the diplomats let out collective relief. He did it, the Thal envoy hummed. Remarkable, Lady Ryella said softly. A human walked through fire for us. But before they could celebrate, a sudden burst of static echoed through the hall's communication system. A distorted voice rang out, "Interference detected. Thermal stabilization blocked." Elias heard the message too. His head snapped up. "What now?" he muttered. Another alarm blared from the corridor behind him, the floor vibrating harder than before. The Thial envoy urgently transmitted over the communicator. "Captain Rourke, someone is accessing the secondary regulator chamber. They are trying to reverse your repairs." Elias groaned. "Of course they are." He forced himself back to his feet. "Raella, can you seal the hall doors? Keep the diplomats safe." "We can," she replied. "But what about you?" "I'll deal with whoever's down here." "Alone?" the HFY asked. Elias started walking toward the corridor again. His legs were shaking, but his resolve was stronger than the heat. "Humans are used to working alone," he said, "and I'm not letting some saboteur blow up this station." The intruder in the steam. The corridor's glow had changed. Instead of the bright orange of intense heat, strange shadows danced along the walls. Elias moved carefully, his senses sharp. Steam billowed around him, blocking his view. The deeper he walked, the stronger an unfamiliar scent became, something like burning chemicals mixed with cold air. Then he saw a dark silhouette near the junction. It wasn't Vaharan. It wasn't Thal. It wasn't HFY. The figure stood tall, armored, and unfamiliar. Its suit had jagged markings that Elias recognized from intelligence briefings. His pulse quickened. An Orathi agent. The Orathi, aggressive conquerors who wanted domination over the region, and one of their operatives was here, sabotaging a peaceful diplomatic site. The figure turned slowly toward him, glowing visor staring straight at him through the steam. "So," Elias said, voice steady despite his exhaustion, "you're the reason this place nearly cooked everyone." The intruder raised a small device, its lights blinking rapidly. Elias recognized it instantly, an energy destabilizer. The Orathi wanted to finish what they started. Elias clenched his fists. He was overheated, tired, drenched in sweat, and barely standing. But he was still human, and humans didn't quit, swirled around him like silent ghosts. Captain Elias Rourke felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The maintenance corridor was still scorching hot, but he ignored the burning in his skin. The Orathi's visor glowed bright red as it scanned him. "Human!" a distorted mechanical voice echoed from the helmet. "You should not be here!" Elias wiped sweat from his eyes. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." The Orathi tilted its head, confused by the human's calm tone. "You have interfered," the agent said. "This sauna will collapse, the diplomats will perish, and the coalition's unity will dissolve." Elias forced a small breath. "Not if I stop you." A low rumbling answered him as another alarm echoed through the corridor. The temperature rose again. The steam thickened until it was almost impossible to see 10 steps ahead. The Orathi didn't seem bothered. "Humans are fragile. Heat will destroy you." "Maybe," Elias said, squaring his shoulders. "But humans don't give up." He took one step forward. The Orathi agent raised the destabilizer, and the last part of the battle for the celestial sauna began. The clash in the corridor. Elias moved first. He lunged forward, grabbing the nearest pipe to swing himself quickly to the side. The Orathi fired a burst of unstable energy that missed him by inches, exploding against the far wall. The blast sent metal fragments scattering across the floor. The corridor shook violently, but Elias didn't stop. He reached the Orathi in 2 quick strides and struck the device with his forearm. The blow knocked the destabilizer out of the agent's hand, sending it clattering across the floor. The Orathi reacted instantly. A heavy armored fist slammed into Elias's shoulder. Pain shot down his arm, but he stayed on his feet. The agent growled. "You are persistent." "You have no idea," Elias said, breathing hard. Another punch came toward him. Elias ducked, heat swirling around him like a furnace. He felt sweat running down his back in rivers, but adrenaline kept him moving. The Orathi swung again, a sweeping strike meant to knock him down. Elias blocked with his forearm, grunted at the impact, and kicked forward, hitting the agent's knee joint. The Orathi stumbled slightly. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Elias dashed toward the fallen destabilizer device. The Orathi roared in anger and charged after him. A heat too strong. The destabilizer slid across the floor, stopping near an exposed vent where golden light shimmered like molten sun. Elias grabbed it, but the moment he touched the metal, it burned him. He hissed through clenched teeth but held on. Behind him, the Orathi agent stopped. It knew Elias couldn't destroy the device. It was shielded. But the human hesitated for only 1 second before throwing it into the glowing thermal vent. The device melted instantly. A sharp alarm cut through the corridor. The thermal pressure began stabilizing again. Elias exhaled shakily. There. No more sabotage. The Orathi agent, however, was not finished. "You ruined our plan," it snarled. "You delay the future. The Orathi Empire will rise." Elias stood tall, breathing hard. "Maybe, but it won't start today." The agent sprinted toward him with incredible speed. Elias braced himself. The turning point. Before the Orathi reached him, a sudden bright blue beam shot through the steam from behind the agent. The Orathi froze, armor crackling with energy. The beam wasn't lethal. It was a containment pulse. Elias looked up just as Lady Raella stepped into the corridor, surrounded by shimmering heat shields. The Thal envoy floated beside her, glowing brightly. Behind them, the HFY scuttled forward, limbs moving quickly. "Captain Rourke," Lady Raella said, "you held the line longer than any of us expected." The Thal envoy hummed warmly. "Human endurance is extraordinary." Elias laughed weakly. "Glad you came." The Orathi agent tried to break free from the containment pulse, but the Thal envoy increased the energy output, trapping the intruder inside a cage of shimmering light. "No use resisting," the Thal said. "You are captured." The Orathi hissed and went still. Elias sagged slightly, finally letting himself feel the exhaustion that had been clawing at him. His vision blurred for a moment, but he steadied himself by gripping the corridor wall. Lady Raella reached him first. She extended her glowing hand. "Captain, you need help." He shook his head. "Later. Is the station safe?" "Yes," she said softly. "Thanks to you." The aftermath. The group escorted Elias back through the corridor. The heat shields from the Vaharan attendants cooled the temperature around them. Slowly, steam cleared, and Elias could breathe normally again. When they returned to the main hall, the diplomats stood waiting, their faces full of concern. A wave of cool, refreshing mist greeted them as they entered. Mara Quinn, his first officer, burst into the room moments later, having forced her way in once the emergency seal was lifted. She looked at Elias with a mix of shock, relief, and annoyance. "Captain, what were you thinking?" Elias smiled tiredly. "I was thinking our diplomacy meeting needed less fire." "You walked through a burning corridor." "Correction," Elias said. "I ran through it." She glared but sighed in relief. The judgment. The coalition diplomats formed a semicircle around Elias. Lady Raella stepped forward as their chosen speaker. "Captain Elias Rourke," she began, "today you proved something that few species ever demonstrate so clearly." Elias stood straighter despite his exhaustion. "And what's that?" "That humans," she said, "are not defined by their weaknesses, but by their will." The Thal envoy floated closer, glowing warmly. "Your actions saved all of us. You protected the unity we desperately need." The HFY ambassador clicked its mandibles in approval. and you fought Orathi aggression head-on without fear. The attendants activated the hall's ceremonial lights. Soft, golden beams illuminated Elias as Lady Ryella lifted a small crystalline emblem. "We, the Tri-Species Coalition," she said, "recognize you as a guardian of accord." Elias blinked. "A what?" Mara whispered. "Captain, that's one of their highest honors." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "I just did what anyone would do." Lady Ryella smiled. "No, not anyone. You." She placed the emblem in his hand. It felt cool in contrast to everything he had endured. The bigger truth. Once the ceremony ended, the diplomats gathered around a glowing projection table. The captured Orathi agent was transported to a secure chamber. "The Orathi wanted to disrupt our talks," Lady Ryella explained. "They feared unity between our species. And they knew humans were the key," the Thal envoy added. Elias frowned. "Me? Humanity," the envoy corrected. "Your species has something rare. You adapt, you endure, and others follow your lead." Elias wasn't sure how to respond. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who just survived the strangest sauna trip in history. But he listened carefully as the coalition diplomats continued. "If we join our forces," the HFY said, "the Orathi cannot dominate this region. With humans among us, our alliance becomes stronger." Elias took a deep breath. "Then we'll stand with you." Mara nodded. "Earth won't back down." The diplomats exchanged satisfied looks. The coalition was united, and humanity had earned a seat at the table. A quiet moment later, when the chaos settled and the celestial sauna returned to its peaceful glow, Elias sat alone on one of the warm stone benches. The mist felt refreshing on his tired skin. He let out a long breath. It had been the most exhausting day of his life, but also one of the most important. Mara approached quietly and sat next to him. "You okay?" "Yeah," Elias said softly. "Just thinking." "About the Orathi?" "No," Elias said. "About how I'm never coming back to this sauna again?" She laughed. "Captain, you might have to. Diplomacy, remember?" He groaned. "Fine. But next time I'm bringing ice water." She smiled. "Deal." Humanity's new path. As the horizon departed the celestial sauna, Elias stood at the viewing window. Stars shimmered like distant lanterns across the darkness. The coalition was stronger now. And humanity had proven itself. The Orathi would come again. He knew it. But next time, they wouldn't be facing divided worlds. They would be facing united ones. Elias smiled faintly. "Not bad," he whispered. "For a sauna trip." Then he turned and walked back to the bridge, ready for whatever came next.